I support survivors of abuse, and I want to do whatever I can to help make people aware of the incredible issue of abuse in all areas of modern life. And I think that the basic support that one can give someone who's abused is that you listen and you believe them. Now, that's hard sometimes. And there are many reasons why you might not want to believe somebody. And if we just believe everything that somebody says about somebody else, there are problems with that. When I was a school teacher, sometimes unraveling the actual truth of a situation between a bunch of kids was very difficult, because sometimes you'd have someone come up to you and say, "Miss, he's bullying me." And I'd go, "Oh, goodness me, this is no good." And I'd go over to the person who was supposedly bullying this person. And they'd say, "No, miss, he's bullying me." What do you do? Who do you believe? Sometimes people will say, "Well, he's bullying me," to protect themselves against being accused of the same thing. Okay, so I say that just to show that, there are all sorts of different motivations that people will have for saying what they say and thinking what they say. And in some of these instances, the person who was bullying someone then did think they were being bullied back. And in some respects, you could see that perspective. They weren't always just lying. So I tell this story just to point out that somebody's truth is not necessarily somebody else's truth. And when you hear someone, for instance, say something that someone you have a lot of respect for, say a lama, that you think is, and is an ethical person, and someone comes along and says, "Well, actually, he did something inappropriate to me," there's a lot of reasons why you might not want to believe them. And one of those reasons is the old cognitive dissonance, which is like, well, this person seems to be so good, and he's done so much good and helped and blah, blah, blah. And perhaps your personal knowledge of that person is that, you couldn't imagine him doing such a thing. And yet on the other side, you have someone saying, "No, he did that to me." So that's difficult, because you've got many reasons to think this is outside of the normal behavior of this person. But that doesn't mean that what the person who's accusing them of unethical behavior is saying, that doesn't mean that that's not true. Because as we've seen in Sogyal Rinpoche's case, someone can do a lot of good for a lot of people and still behave atrociously behind the scenes. So we can't use our own perception of somebody as a reason by itself to not believe a survivor, because the person that we think we know may have a side to them that we simply don't know about. So we have to be prepared to hear someone, even if they're saying something we really don't want to hear. At the same time, if we believed everything that anybody told us, we would be being a little bit naive, particularly in a world where it's really easy for people to say anything and for other people to then repeat what they say. And after it's been said a bunch of times, then people accept it as truth, even if it may not be true. And we see this in politics. The Australian elections are about to happen, and one of our parties, the Liberal Party, has said so many things over and over again about the leader of the opposition, which actually are not true. But it's like if they say it over and over and over again, people start to believe it, whether it's true or not. And this is the downside of social media. It's very easy to say what you want to say, but on the other hand, it's also very easy to find yourself sharing something which actually isn't true. And I think when it comes to, survivors of abuse, my attitude is, well, it's true from their point of view, and I can honour that truth. So if someone is saying that they've been abused, then I can believe them in terms of how it appears to them. You know, if someone thinks they've been abused, for them, they've been abused. I think we always need to give the person accused an opportunity to state their side of the case. And this is where, you know, complete transparency and really clear statement. If a Buddhist teacher is accused of ethical misconduct and they feel that this is not true, they need to make a very, very clear statement. Not this sort of knee-jerk reaction where you try and silence people and you shame them and you put them down, you say that they're unstable and all this kind of thing. But a really clear statement which shows what they believe and really, really clearly. And I think there's no harm in saying, like, I'm sorry that, my actions were misinterpreted, or that's not what I thought I was doing, or, I thought I was, put my arm around you because I was comforting you, and I'm really sorry that you saw that as inappropriate. That wasn't my intention. So I think a really specific answer, which, lays it out. It's like, well, okay, yes, I recognize that situation occurred, but this is how it appeared to me. Or, this is other information that you don't have. So that you give people the information that they need to be able to see what, to get some idea of what really happened in this situation. For instance, if, a Lama says something inappropriate to you, that's inappropriate, sure, but it's not the same as, him forcing yourself on you. So, but what can happen is you might say something about that on social media, and suddenly people pick it up in it, but it gets blown out of proportion. It becomes, suddenly this person's a sexual predator. I don't think it would be wise to turn that into anything more than what it actually is. So that's one level of it, is just like being really, really clear, instead of just saying, oh, well, so-and-so harassed me. Be really clear, this is what happened. This is what he did and what I did and who else was there, so that things don't get blown out of proportion, and so that people who are listening to you can be really clear about just exactly what happened. Because I think these big labels, they cover too much, and then your imagination can make it, more than it really is. I think in this age of encouraging people to speak out, and I definitely do encourage people to speak out, and I do think that people can make statements which presumably they would give to the police with their name on it, but I think they can publish statements with pseudonyms, because there's many reasons why people don't want to put their names on their statements about how they've been abused. But that doesn't mean that those statements shouldn't be publicly recorded so people can see them. If they are publicly recorded somewhere, and the name of the Lama or the business person, whoever it is revealed, then that person can provide a statement saying what their position is on that particular thing. And if they make a clear statement, that will show so much about that person's personality and, the way they handle that situation. Because you can handle situations where you've been accused of something that maybe you haven't actually done, or you don't think that you've done, or you weren't aware that it was an issue for somebody. You can handle that kind of situation with integrity. And handling it with integrity would be honouring the fact that from that person's point of view, the person who made the claim, that's their experience. So it's not a matter of them being wrong. It's not a matter of, I don't believe them. It's a matter of, well, from that person's point of view, that's how they experienced it. And then it's a matter of, well, from this person's point of view, this is how they saw the situation. And then it's up to every individual person themselves to decide what they think about that particular situation. I think that's the only way in the times of social media, is people to be really specific. Because in the end, when we're talking about choosing a spiritual teacher, every student has to evaluate that person for themselves. And so they need to see what people have said about them. And they also need to see what the person themselves has said, how they've responded. And, we can see the normal way, the usual way that these lamas respond to accusations of unethical behavior. The pattern is appallingly the same. It doesn't matter who it is. They fall into the old Davo, the deny they've done it, attack the victim, and then turn themselves into a victim by saying that the victim is attacking them. That's just such a common reaction. So if you see a lama who's been accused of something reacting not in that way, but in a way that actually honors the experience of the person and shares their perspective on that actual situation, then we have a very, very different situation. Then we have a sense of, oh, okay, that person's actually responding to this in an honourable way. And if they've actually have caused harm, they've done something wrong, they can apologise for it. And that's integrity. And as long as they say that, they really do intend not to do that again, people can forgive that. It's like if you actually do apologize and genuinely go, oh goodness, I didn't mean to hurt that person, but obviously I have, and I'm really sorry for that, and what did I actually do? Oh gosh, that's what I did, and that person found that inappropriate. Oh, okay, well, I didn't realize, so I'm sorry, and I will actually be really careful not to do that again. That's fine. When you're a serial abuser, of course, and perhaps a narcissist, the likelihood of you stopping is, probably fairly slim. But that's a different story. I'm talking here about when you hear one person say something about one lama. But it's hard, like I've heard situations of people where they know others have been abused, but they don't know who those other people are. They don't know their names. They might have seen them coming out of somebody's room, but they don't know who they are. They are separated from each other, or they can't convince somebody else to speak out with them. So they're a lone voice. It's very hard to be a lone voice, especially if you don't want to put your name to your complaints, because you're likely to be attacked. That is what happens. So we're talking about ascertaining the truth. What is the truth? Who do we believe? And do we not believe someone because they're crazy? And maybe that person is a little bit off beam because they were abused, and maybe this very thing that they're talking about is the thing that did knock them off beam. I mean, trauma. People get traumatized by this kind of thing, and trauma knocks you around. It knocks you off beam. It makes it hard for you to talk about things clearly, and you get upset, and then other people use that as a reason not to believe you. They go, oh well, they're not clear about what they're saying, or oh, they're obviously a bit vehement, that means they're not telling the truth, or that means they've got some sort of agenda, or all of that. What people don't recognize is that those are signs of trauma. So, but at the same time, you can't just believe everything that you hear. I have heard of people who were completely innocent, and I'm not talking about a lama in this situation, just an ordinary person who was accused of sexually harassing someone when he just from as far as he knew, he just brushed past her. So, and that's not to say that the person who accused him was lying. It's just that from her point of view, given her background, given, the way she is as a person, that's how she experienced that situation. So I guess what I'm saying is that there's a difference between honouring somebody's truth as they see it from their perspective and recognising what is objective truth. And we can go into a whole discussion about whether objective truth exists or not. But, in a court of law, you get 12 jurors, and that's the reason why there's 12 jurors. If 12 people can come to some kind of a decision about something, then, we take that as being true. Even though all those 12 people look at it from their own angles and, have their own backgrounds and see different things. When you present evidence, people see it different ways. So the idea that truth is only subjective, certainly has value because we do experience our lives from our own perspective, through our own belief systems, through our own background, everything. Particularly our beliefs affect how we experience our world. So we do have personal truths which may not match collective truth. We can say there is no objective truth, but we can say that there is a collective truth. And collective truth is what a majority of people agree on. If we've got conflicting stories about the same person or the same situation, what are we to believe? Because from this person's point of view, what they're seeing is their truth. And this person who may be saying, well, that's not true, maybe seeing it from, are seeing it from their point of view. And okay, they might be lying, but it's also maybe how they actually see that situation. So what are we to do? How are we to decide? I think only by really carefully analysing the information that comes to us. I think we need to be very open about our own motivations and our own tendencies. So, for instance, if a lama's accused and it's someone we really respect and we really don't want that person to be pulled down off their throne, then we may not give enough credence to voices that say, no, this lama is not as ethical as you think they are. So we need to be very aware of our desire to protect those that we think are wonderful people. Because people do have hidden sides. And we need to be aware of, if we're doing that, that we may denigrate the person speaking up. We may not even mean to, but we may see just their negative side or see their difficult side and use that as a reason not to believe them. So I think we just need to be really open and clear about our own motivations and be willing to say, well, I don't know this person, I don't really know this person, so how am I to say? So I just link to what information I'm given, and I'll leave it up to you to decide which teachers you would consider following and considering taking teachings from.